negate a few of those objections or resistance, because what's objections? It's resistance, right? So anyway, what I'll do, I am going to, like I said, I'm going to mute all, and then I'm going to ask the four participants, if you could all unmute yourselves, that'd be great. Lisa too, if you want, if you'd like to. I'm going to jump right in interest of time. The first objection that Ryan asked to have covered was, I have a friend who just got their license, or they have a friend who's in the business. Now, when you're going to get that listing, when you're going to compete for that, what's your typical reaction when, and anyone who wants to start, we can start with Amanda if you want, Darlene, Jeff, and Pam, it doesn't matter. What's your typical reaction to that objection?
I have a very straightforward one. If I'm going to meet with someone and their friend is an agent, or there's someone in the business, I explain that this is a process. This is a business process. Sometimes everything goes perfectly, and sometimes we just have hit all the bases and it's swimming, and sometimes it's not. There's a lot of problem solving involved in buying and selling real estate. Me as a professional real estate person, or us working as professional real estate people, are responsible to you. You can fire us. If we don't do what we're supposed to do, you can fire us. You can get rid of us and get somebody else. That almost never happens, but you have the ability to do that. If you have a friend that you've listed the property with, you don't just walk away from a real estate person. You walk away from a friendship, and you lose that forever. So why risk it? You're not going to benefit. The benefit is keeping it a business transaction.
Okay, very interesting. Very good. Darlene?
I agree with Jeff. You don't want to mix business and pleasure, and doing it with a friend or a family member can really get awkward, and you have to explain that to them and make them understand that it might not be the best business decision or a personal decision for them. I would just totally agree. I think that would be the biggest factor. And, experience, we may have a little bit more experience than they do. You don't really want to.
The only thing that I would add to that is I'm a person, I really like to ask questions, because I find out I can make a lot more progress if I'm having them answering questions that I need in order to give better service to them. Is, if you have a friend in the business, why are you calling me?
Right.
Because what they tell you will give you the answer that you need to give them.
Very
right?
smart.
That's always my point, is always keep asking questions, because they'll tell you what they need to know in order to make a proper, well thought out decision. If you keep asking the questions and then answer the questions that they're asking.
I agree.
I was just going to add one more thing to that, because what Jeff said about, like, you can't fire your friend, I think is obviously the best argument. But one of the other points was, we want to try selling at FSBO. And I think this kind of ties into the FSBO thing too, is buyers and sellers alike need a third party, non-emotional party. It's just, when you have someone who tags along that is emotional, whether it's your friend or your uncle, they're going to be biased about it. And I just try to stress to buyers and sellers, you need someone who doesn't have the emotional ties that you have. And they seem to respond really well to that idea.
Brian, I think you have a problem. We can't hear you.
Can't hear me?
There you
Yes.
go. You're back now.
All right, sorry about that. Has it ever been the case that a client or customer may be less willing to let a friend know their inside scoop about their finances and about their personal situation? I know it sounds crazy, but having a friend see behind the curtain a little bit and see the fact that this is what we can afford, this is the financial background and carnage we've been through. We see a lot of things in the real estate world and our dealings with clients. We see a lot of their personal stuff. And I wonder if sometimes letting that access be there for a friend. There, and not all friends know our personal stuff. So anyway, something to think about. How about this? How about when a potential client or customer would say this? You know, maybe they're very comfortable with you, or maybe they have a good impression, but they say you are just too new in the business. Let's start with Amanda and with that one. We'll go backwards. Amanda, what do you think of that? You're just too new.
I hate this objection. I never really know. I don't really have anything that I kind of pull out of a vault for this one. It's a really crappy thing to hear. If Ryan were on this call, he would be chatting me that he hates hearing this, but I'm a huge fan of fake it till you make it. Ryan hates that expression, but I think that it's all about confidence. Like anyone could look at someone who's beginning anything and say that they're too new, but you know, I feel like really what they're just looking for is some reassurance, and without trying, sometimes what I do is I'll flip it around and sort of change my mindset to I'm interviewing them. And, you know, why do I want to work with this seller? Is this seller the best match for me? Is this buyer the best match for me? And it's crazy how when you just kind of flip it around to that, they do seem to respond well. I think that the point is trying to avoid that objection altogether from it even coming up.
Okay. Darlene?
You know, I try to tell them, you know, who better than somebody who's new in the business. I'm trying to prove my record, and I'm trying to do the best I can. I have a lot more time than some of the other agents who have, you know, all of these listings or all of these, you know, buyers. I have the time to really be personal with you and really do a great job for you. And I'm, like I said, I'm trying to prove myself in this business. So I'm going to do an extra special good job for you. You know, I think, you know,
Brian, one of
Yeah.
the things, just as an additional point, when we first got in the business, I think there's almost nothing that is the best presentation you can make is the sheer enthusiasm that you have for what you're about to endeavor. And I think before you have all the knowledge and everything else, just pure enthusiasm goes a very long way.
Now
That's kind of
interesting.
that's my fake it till you make it. That's how
Right.
I, you know, you gotta fake it a little bit.
Well, it's
I'm so
interesting.
excited to represent you to sell your property. Here's my great ideas. I know we can do this. And that goes a long way because that's a sense of commitment to the job that they'll like.
Yeah,
So
also,
Yeah.
I think that I think that one of the benefits for a younger person coming into a company like Berkshire Hathaway is you focus part of your energy on the company. You know, oh, well, yeah, I'm new in the company, but boy, I'm really with this great company. And there's some people in there that have sold so many houses. It's like, look at what it's the same as the question of how many houses have you sold in my neighborhood? Well, I haven't sold personally, but the company we've sold so many. Go in with that information. So you're pushing on the value that you have with this affiliation. This affiliation gives you a big difference between Jane's real estate company and Bill's real estate company. And, you know, all of these people are in my sphere of activity. I talk to them every week. I tell them all the stuff that we need to know, and it's very enthusiastic. Enthusiasm, I agree with Pam, is definitely a big part of it. But put it back on your company. Your company has a lot of people. Your company sold a lot of stuff. Your company has tons of experience, more than anybody else. And they're an asset that's there for, you know, for the asking.
That's terrific. I think those are all excellent pieces. The only thing I'd add, Amanda, see, I think when you go in with your enthusiasm and your sincerity and your drive, I know it's a saying, but I don't see it as fake it. I see it as you going in and just being you, and that working from what Pam said with the enthusiasm and what Darlene said about who better than somebody new. I think these answers are terrific. And then Jeff, you know, we have this huge benefit of a terrific network and company and offices behind us. So these are great answers. Excellent, excellent, excellent. How about this one? And we'll go to Darlene for this one. How about, what have you sold in my area?
well, they're asking me the question, what have you sold in my area?
Yeah, they're trying to, they want you to make the case that, you know, that you are, you know, qualified to sell something in their area.
Well, I tried to have as many statistics for that area around in their neighborhood or their school district as I can. You know, you have a great MLS, you have everything right there at your fingertips. I think Joanne has been great at, showing exactly the knowledge that's there. I mean, all that information is at your fingertips. So I try to make sure I'm as prepared as I can at, comps in the area, what has sold recently, what's available. All those statistics are really important. And I think if you just put it out and lay it out there for them, there's the facts are the facts, and here they are. This is what's selling, and just showing them that knowledge and how much you're going to work for them right up front, right from the very beginning. It's, I've spent time gathering all this information, and here's, and if they want specifics, you can come down to how well do you know the neighborhood,
Mhm.
prove them, what parks are in the neighborhood, what school districts. I think you want to go in knowing all that stuff.
Terrific. Now, Jeff, how would you incorporate the company there? I mean, the natural question is, well, this is what we've sold in this area, right?
Well, I think, Brian, that a part of the big picture that a lot of the public doesn't understand relative to the business of real estate is that half of our job is selling the property to the realtors, and half of it is selling it to the public. If you can explain that to the seller, that look at how many houses I've sold in this neighborhood is not the question you want to ask. How likely is it that the house is going to get sold in this neighborhood? And how likely, what does the market look like here? I have connection to 3,000 realtors who all will pay attention as soon as I put this on the market. They're going to be looking and they're going to be seeing, and we're going to give them all of the information they possibly need. And if they need something else, we'll gather it up. But the idea is that we're selling properties to other realtors, and then they're selling it to their people. And we sometimes find the buyers for the property too, but we will be dealing with thousands of other people who will have lots of information that they can use to sell your property. So,
And
my
also the bank, Jeff, also
Yeah.
the bank. There's three people, the realtor, the buyer,
right.
and the bank.
Okay, so this is interesting because you're talking about, Jeff, and then Pam, reframing that question. I mean, you just did it, Jeff. You just said, wait a minute, this is, and so did you, Darlene, to some extent. You said, let me evidence my knowledge of the community, what I understand about it. And then, Jeff, you just said, look, it's not about how many I've sold on the block. It's about our job, which is how are we going to get your property sold in that period?
And it's what Darlene has said, I think is important, because they don't know. Most people, even if they've sold other houses, they don't understand. They'll nod their head when you say MLS, and you might as well be seeing STD. I mean, it's like, they don't know. They're just like,
Maybe not
okay.
that.
I'm going to tell you, I didn't see that one coming, Jeff, but thank you.
We got to have humor
they-
in this training.
Oh, the humor's
You explain
important.
it's a whole business. I mean, there's a lot to it that they don't see.
And we have to be careful with acronyms because there's a lot of people, we can't make assumptions. People have any idea what we're talking about with that.
Yeah.
Amanda,
And everybody
what
will
would you-
shake their head.
Yeah, exactly right. Amanda, what do you think?
Well, I was thinking, and then Jeff, I totally wrote down everything Jeff just said because I love it. And Darlene too, but I love the thought of you're asking the wrong question.
Yeah.
My response was more or less going to be, if somebody, in Brunswick was asking me, what I've sold in their area, I would, like Darlene said, have my facts together and be ready to respond, but maybe try to take the focus off of what I've sold and maybe say something like, that, just kind of talk about, oh, well, I'm really familiar with the school district. I've shown a lot of property in this area. I'm very familiar with the taxes. Just doing as much research on it as you can so that you sound like you know what you're talking about. I'm going to mute because my dogs are going crazy.
No, that's okay. Those are very, very smart answers again. I want
Brian, the other thing that I was going to suggest is that turning the question, rather than every time you get an objection, not automatically taking the bait and trying to regurgitate an answer to them to
Okay.
fill up that whole box, but to turn it around to them and ask the question, what are your concerns? Why are you concerned? So, because that opens a whole other box of not just how many homes you sold in that area, but what about marketing and screening buyers and finding financing and all the things that you're going to bring to the table. that don't include just what you've sold in the marketplace. You can open up another whole box there if you ask them that question. What are your concerns regarding this, or why are you concerned?
All right, so that's also brilliant. That's terrific. And so we can't make the assumption, we shouldn't make the assumption that each of these objections need to be directly refuted or overcome or battled with. It could be sometimes that it's a reframing. Sometimes their objections can lead us to another concern. I love what Christine Gerber wrote. Spin it to the positive. You have the most current education, latest technology, etc. That goes back again to Amanda, to Darlene, and a couple of these questions, and that is because, as Jeff said, they don't know necessarily what they don't know. So, and we don't know what they don't know. And so to come forward with the tools and be able to brand ourselves a little bit is being very tuned into what's happening in their neighborhood. Interesting. How about this? And this is a big turn, a left turn with objections to one of our biggest ones. Your commission rate is too high. Will you reduce that commission? What are you going to say, Darlene?
What don't you want me to do? You know, if you want discount, then, you know, there's a job to be done and everybody needs to get paid for their job. And, you know, what is that other agent not doing for you that I'm bringing to the table? You know, I always have a marketing plan with me when I go in and show them exactly what I do. You know, I don't think that the general public knows everything that a real estate agent does for them. You know, they think, oh, they just put a sign out front and maybe, you know, have an open house and it's going to sell. They don't realize what goes on behind the scenes. So kind of going through that list with them of all the things that we do and say, well, you know, if you want me to cut my commission, where would you like me to cut out from this list of things that I actually do?
Now, Amanda, what do you think?
Darlene, I love that, but it makes me nervous. I would worry that they might actually answer that question. And then what do you say? Like, I mean, I try to tackle commission right from the get-go. I feel like it's usually the number one question in a seller's mind. I try to get it all out in the beginning, get through the appointment, and honestly, they usually don't have much to say. They usually, I think it's all about how you present it. I really love Darlene's question though. I just feel like knowing myself, it might get me into some trouble.
Well, it goes back to confidence again, maybe then. What do you think, Pam?
Well, my observation about that is my job here is going to be to try to get you the absolute highest price I can possibly get for you. You know, there's other things we do, but that's going to be the primary thing, is to get the highest price we can possibly do. So I'm going to defend your price to my absolute maximum ability. If I'm not able to defend my commission to you for the job that I'm going to be doing.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Pam, in so many of these answers, she's doing as much as she can to find out about her audience. And, you know, once you ask some of those questions and you kind of get an idea of what kind of person you're dealing with, then you can kind of, you know, structure your answers to these questions that are coming up and objections that are coming up. You know, everybody's different. And, you know, when you're sitting across the table from an engineer is so much different than, you know, sitting across the table from somebody who's in retail. So, you know, there's a huge difference. And I think the ideal thing is, like Pam said, in every one of these answers, is know your audience. Find out what makes them tick. Why are they asking these questions? Is it a matter of they can't afford, you know, if they're really tight with their mortgage payoff and what they're buying? You know, there's so many reasons to these objections.
That's interesting. Now, Jeff, what do you think?
I think that the issue of what the public understands about that is another part of the solution to this problem. In other words, if someone brings that, if that's the first thing that they want to talk about, if they walk in and they go, so what do you charge for a commission? I would tend to try to defer that question. I would say, well, the commission is a negotiable between the seller and the broker. It is from legal point of view, and we want to do the best job that we can, and we have a need to make a certain amount of money because this money that comes into the office is not mine. It's not like if we
Yeah.
do a 7% or 6% or 5%, whatever the commission is, it's not my money. This money is divided among the companies and among the other brokers, and we have to provide enough money to the other brokers so that they want to cooperate. So if you hammer hard on the commission, on trying to get me to take a low commission, and if I agreed to that, then I'm stuck in a place where 50% of the people who might be cooperating brokers might not show the property, because if they showed a similar property with a regular commission, they'd make more. So at the end of the day, you have to make a business decision, Mr. Seller. Are we providing you with the services necessary to sell the property? And are you providing the money necessary to make this transaction work? Because that's what this is. It's a business of money and transactions. So if you
Yeah.
try to cut corners in the beginning, you can be in trouble.
And just as an additional aside to that is the idea that we want them to position their property in the marketplace against the competition, the properties that have not sold. And we want that to be exciting. So we want the price to be exciting, but we also want the commission structure that they're going to receive as a fair commission, to see them as fair, as two ways to make their property be exciting in the marketplace and generate activity and a contract.
Yeah, and I think that, I agree, Pam, and I think that the idea that when you're talking about a discounted broker, let's say somebody, you're going in at X percent and they're going to go in at 4% or something. And, you know, Darlene's point of what do you not want to have is a good point, but they don't know what you're going to be providing to begin with. Even when they're looking at a list, they're so overwhelmed and they're thinking about that price. What am I going to get? How much, you know, who's going to give me the best deal? We have to redirect their thinking into what's going to be of most value to them. The most important thing is this house comes on the market in the right place in the market. We put it in the right place in the market. You're competitive with the people around you, and we get the most amount of money that way. And use an example, if I sold $100,000 house and my commission was or you know, $500,000 house, and I was offering $3,000 less than another broker, what would be the point? What would be the loss? And make it very specific. You know, okay, let's say I take this at 4% and I offer these other brokers X dollars, and they would be making X more with another listing that's a full commission. How does that benefit you, Mr. Seller? Maybe you think you're going to gain money by doing that, but you're probably going to have fewer people looking at it. You're probably going to have less competition on the property, and you could wind up with a less money. Than we want this to go in the market in a competitive, almost auction-like environment. We want everybody to be aware of it. We want them to see it. We want the other brokers to bring their buyers and get a number for you that's the highest that we possibly can get. If you're cutting corners at the beginning, you're losing the advantage of what the whole system is built on.
Oh, I love it. Jeff, let me ask you something. Would you ever say, Mr. and Mrs. Consumer, as long as you walk away with the most possible money in your pocket, does it make a difference how much you're paying me?
I wouldn't frame it that way exactly, Brian, but I think coming to a point that they understand what the net dollar is that you're talking about in the transaction is a really important part.
Okay.
You know, because they'll have expenses, and they don't, when you're going into it in the beginning, they don't even know what the expenses are. They don't know that there's a transfer tax. They don't know that the survey and abstract and attorney's fees. So giving people, before you start talking about whether I'm going to cut my commission, I want to create value for what I'm providing, the information I'm providing, and have them know exactly what it is. So if it's a $500,000 house and I cut my commission by such and such, how much is it costing you? You know, is it worth it? You want to provide the best incentive you can for the competition to help sell your property. And is it worth a couple $1,000 for you to, you know, to miss the possibility of having the most number of people see it and getting the highest price?
Getting the highest possible. Okay.
Well, I
And
think
Jeff, we
also
also-
one more.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Amanda, go
sorry.
ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and I'm sorry, whoever I just
No, you're fine.
interrupted. I don't know if I mean, I don't do this, and I really, really should. Julia did it when I was Julia Rosen's assistant. I used to type these up for her before any of her listing appointments, and she is absolutely someone we can all try to emulate. I mean, am I right?
Sure.
She had a very clear, not just a marketing plan, but, and I feel bad, I'm kind of like giving you guys like her nuggets, but I just think this is so awesome. She would have a branded marketing plan, and she would also have basically, here's what I will be providing to you, specifically sellers, because I think sellers are usually, at least for me, I feel like they're so much more nervous than you expect them to be. They're like, they're freaking out. Like they're scared. They don't know what, I mean, just like when you explain the process to buyers, I think sellers really benefit knowing that you are going to be there until the finish line. I think that that's honestly, that's where the commission really comes in. It's like you're providing this service from beginning to end. And without bashing other brokers, I try to even kind of throw in, like, you kind of get what you pay for. You know, if you want a reduced commission rate, that's absolutely your choice and you have every right to do that. But, you know, I just want to let you know from past experiences, I've heard a lot of people that were very unhappy selling their home with people who cut their commission rate because they weren't around as much as they wanted them to be.
Well, it's interesting if everybody's looking to make a living in this business, and you know, a listing agent out there is listing it for all their listings for 30 to 40% off. They have to do more listings to make the same income we're all looking for. And so what do they, you know, there's only so much time in a day. And you go back to, this relates back to what Darlene was saying about what do you want to give up, right? And this is all, and you know what Pam, yeah, Pam and Jeff, you both have said the value, you know.
Right, that's the list I would pull up for Darlene's thing. I'd be like, here's your list. What do you want me to take off the list?
And it's actually Julia's list too. And what you
Yeah.
Did she have a price associated with what she was offering, Amanda? In other words, the other list, did she offer that this is my service and this is about what it's worth or anything like that?
No,
or?
it was just sort of, when you hire Julia Rosen, ... here's what you get. And it was a great list. It was, you know, basically explaining that you'll get a weekly call no matter what. And this was back, you know, when the market wasn't the way it is right now, when houses weren't selling in 12 hours. You know, she was reassuring them that she would be there. You know, she'd do a weekly call. She'd explain what, you know, her marketing tactics were. She'd provide a portfolio with her, you know, her other listings. But for new agents, I get that you can't really do that, but it's so easy to just have a brand, like having branded marketing, I think makes sellers feel so good. Like they love it. They think it's, yeah.
Well, this is going to be good because there's a few things in here that the answers to this and these discussions, as you can see, kind of overlap. So let me move to the next one. I think my house is worth a lot more than you are presenting to me. In fact, Zillow says my house is worth blank. Pam and Jeff, how are you combating the Zestimate objection?
There's two different approaches, Brian. The one is with the A personality, the engineer guy, you know, that just a lady, whatever, doctor.
Sure.
And you're sitting down, you're going, well, you have to understand there's an automated data manipulation that's done by all of the online companies when they're trying to project value. They're working from assessed values for the most part, some others information, but they don't have the current information on sales and activity that we will. That may change with the change of Zillow's operation, but their estimates may get me more accurate if they have more, you know, current and accurate information. But for the detailed A personality, I say, listen, you have to understand they're selling advertising. That's what Zillow does. That's how they make their money. They do an automated data process, an automated data estimate of the values of the properties based upon assessments primarily for the general region. So you're not getting a market evaluation. You're not getting what an appraiser would do. I kind of try to dismiss it right there and not get into it too much further because getting in the weeds with that I don't want to talk a whole lot about Zillow. I don't want to be promoting Zillow for anything. I try not to be condescending about it, but I just say, understand, they're not realtors. They don't make money selling the properties. They make money selling the advertisements to the people who look there. So when they buy information from our MLS, they're only buying a certain number of data sets. They're not buying all the points, so that when you look on Zillow, you'll see improper information, incomplete information. Things will be sold that they're not, you know, you have to kind of play the negative part of what they're actually getting, even though the number that they look at with a Zestimate is, you know, it's wonderful to think your house is worth $100,000 more than it is, but there's a difference between a Zestimate and a market analysis or appraisal.
Okay, so it's you don't spend a lot of energy and time committed to this because it's not apples and apples.
Right.
All right.
Because one is a guesstimate, and the other is doing your homework
Oh,
and
isn't
going
that a
back
good,
to the
okay.
multiple listing service. I'm going to do my homework. They really didn't do their homework. This is a guesstimate without having been in the home and without being in this local marketplace. And that's my job, is to go back after we talk and do my homework and
Right.
actually compare the properties in this specific market that had recently sold, that most of them I have been in. So I'm personally familiar with the properties in comparison to this estimate. In addition to that, is there any other reason why you think your property should be priced where you say? And see if that's the only source of information that they have.
Right, so it's not their cousin's house down the street or a very,
Because
okay.
if there's others, I wanted, it's important to probably know what are the sources are that are giving them this number in their mind, so that you have something to talk about
Wow,
other than this
this is-
estimate.
Pam, you were very good at digging in deeper and finding the root of these things. You could have been a psychiatrist or something, I think. This is
That's
pretty-
part of our job.
I think it is. I feel like I should
That's
pay
part
a
of our
copay.
job.
All right, this is
Brian,
good.
I have a
Darlene?
question about this.
Yeah.
You ever get in a situation where, obviously it's sellers probably, most likely they'll interview more than one agent. You ever have like a seller interview multiple agents and have a big difference of pricing from one agent to the other, not just Zillow? Say one agent said your house is worth this, and the other agent said, oh, it's $50,000 less than that. And they're like, oh, wow, but the last person was here said it was worth a lot more.
All right, who'd
Yeah.
like to take that one? Darlene?
I think you get that a lot, agents trying to upsell the house just to
Mhm.
get the listing itself. I, I have to go back to the facts of the facts. If
Mhm.
you're doing your homework, like Pam said, you're bringing facts to the table for them. They can see exactly what's there, what's in their neighborhood, what is sold, and with Zillow, they don't go into these homes. They know, and anybody knows, walk into a house with somebody, they can feel the house, whether it's, done good. The pictures might say one thing, and the area may say one thing, but it may be very different when you walk into it. And here we are, agents, we're walking in and out of these homes every day. We're selling them, we're doing market analysis on them. We're watching every day to see what houses are worth and what they sold. And I think a lot of my clients too, they look at Zillow and they see that the facts aren't always right.
Right.
You have
Well,
someone,
it's interesting what Jeff said about, that where Zillow makes their money. And
Right.
that there's an automated or an algorithm that Zillow uses. It's often dated. It's often incomplete. As Pam said, the guesstimate. Amanda, how about what Stanley had asked about if there's another realtor, and I think Darlene touched upon this because facts are the facts, but
Yeah,
Mhm.
I love this question. I have experienced it in a sense. I actually have an agent in the Del Mar office who just recently lost a listing to another agent who did exactly what you just said. And it turns out that the seller ended up being extremely remorseful because it sat and sat and sat. So I guess, I can be a little bit unconventional with how I talk to people. I try to keep it really loose and just talk to them like they're a regular person. And basically what I would say is, in my professional experience, I find that there are two different ways to, market property. I by all means, I would be more than happy to list your house for $750,000. Based on my research and my experience, I'm suggesting we list at, $699. If you'd like, we can maybe talk about settling on a different price and seeing how the first few weeks go. But I will also tell you, those are very detrimental weeks. That's when the property gets the most exposure. So, with all due respect, I do feel like my price is pretty spot on. And if you want your house to sell quickly, we can go about it this way. But if you'd like to give it a shot, let's talk about maybe changing our approach or something like that.
So one thing I want to mention that we wouldn't have time to get into that now, but I think this really connects nicely into Jackie Leavenworth's work on positioning your home for sale. And when you're walking them down the path of, well, here's the research, here are other houses that are for sale, where would your house need to be? What would your house be? Using your example, Amanda, it's your house is going to be competing with very different properties at 750 than it is at 699. And I think that I think it's really important that you've walked them through, made a case with them where their house should be positioned. So I
And
think
Brian,
yeah.
I'm sorry, the other thing,
No,
just
please.
in addition to what Amanda was saying, is that the idea when you show them the work that you've done, where you think the property should be positioned.
Yeah.
I really like the idea of turning the decision making over to them, so you're not defending your price, so
Okay.
that you show them all of the work that you've done, where you think the positioning of their property should be, and then ask them, with all this data that you're looking at here, where do you think we should price your property to get the absolute most excitement to get a
I do
sale for
that.
you?
I do that with price reductions too, Pam. I love that. You leave it up to them. Make it their choice.
Right, I'm sharing you the information that I've done my research for you, to make the best decision, so that you can make the best decision for yourself.
Yeah.
And with this information, where do you think the most excitement is going to be, where you would like to place your property against these other unsold properties? The idea of calling them active listings is, I don't think that's the best words. I like it. These are the unsold properties that you're going to be competing against to get over here into the sold properties. Where do you think you should be positioned in the marketplace to achieve victory in that regard for yourself?
Yeah,
Terrific.
I think that the other part, in this kind of a market, there are different approaches that we have to take in different markets, no question. If you're going to be a real slow market and you need to hold it for a long time, that's one approach. But when things will sell quickly, pricing is subjective. We don't know this is exactly where it's going to sell. Here's a summary of the best information available. I think I've done my homework, and I think that this is what is supported. But you know what? I like your house and I think it's a great house. And if you want to try it at a higher price, I'm willing to do that. But as long as you agree that we have a reduction to an acceptable level within 30 days. So if you sign an agreement that says, I list the house at 800,000 as opposed to 699 or whatever, you say, but in 30 days, you promise me that you'll revisit this and we'll look at the comps and we'll say, do we need to bring this down? Because Amanda's right. Those first 3 weeks, that's the prime time. If you miss the boat on that, you've made a big mistake in terms of losing the best buyers. That not necessarily gone in this kind of a market, though. They may still be around, and if you bring it down within 30 days, you may still be able to get the maximum dollar for it.
But I think just as another comment, I think that the most important thing there is the idea that they know what the competition is out there, and you want them to have a price reduction in addition to the price. In addition to the placement of your property, I'm trying to get away from that price language. In addition to the placement of your property in the marketplace, is there any other reason why you wouldn't hire me? And if it's reduced down to, we're only talking about this one last objection, we could, if it's, how important is this placement of your property to you at this number? And if they say it's really important, then we could come to a compromise where we can place it there for now, but we're going to put a written agreement. We're not going to have another discussion about this. We're going to agree that we'll try at your preferred placement for 2 weeks, say, because we don't want to lose all 4. And then that will be in writing. And at the 2-week mark, the price will be changed in the multiple listing service and all the advertising.
Yeah, and it's not like you're just kind of, like rolling over for them. You're kind of
Right.
making it's their choice. So they can't
It's still
blame
their
you if the house doesn't sell right away.
How about what about the objection or the comment, which is, we want to think it over. Okay, thanks for your information. We got to kind of chew on this and think it over. That whole pause thing. How do you deal with that? Let's start with Darlene. How do you deal with that after you've done your presentation? Well, we want to think it over. I think you're muted.
Yeah. In this market, I would tell them, you really don't want to wait. You want to get it out there. This is the facts right now. These are the homes that you have out there right now. We really want to move quickly and get it out there so that, you don't miss the market. You don't miss what's going on right now.
So it's interesting, Pam, you had kind of in your last answer suggested kind of isolating the objections, and that in the previous objection, it was about, pricing it higher. And you had said, well, other than this, is there any reason we couldn't move forward or wouldn't hire me now? Would you say the same thing? Would you try to dig into what's making them hold up or what's?
Yep. If that's presented, we still have to think about it. That means I haven't done my job interviewing them, because there are still unanswered questions and pieces of information that I don't have to answer their question.
Okay.
So if you go back through the interviewing thing, if they're transferring, what's the time frame that you need to be there? What happens if you don't sell your property in this time frame, and now your wife and child are here and you're over there at your new job? Going through that interview process again to reduce it to what is the thing that is preventing you from making a decision now.
Okay.
The other way you can approach that is to say, may I ask why? They say, we want to think it over. And I say, may I ask why? Is there something that you don't understand here? Because I'm enthusiastic about this house. I really want to get on this, and I want to get all the pieces put together and the marketing and everything. And I don't want to lose enthusiasm about it. I'd like to get started at it right now. Just why can't you make a decision now?
What's interesting, Jeff, with that question is Tom Ferry said we don't ask enough of those open-ended questions and give people quiet, like a moment to really have to answer. So
that's exactly right. And Pamela is my better half, has the greatest level of forbearance of anyone I've ever known. And forbearance is when you ask the question, shut up and see what they say. So may I ask why? And you go, and then just shut up, let them, and they'll babble through something, and maybe you'll actually hear what the essence of it is. Blah, blah, blah. But that's
we're
just
a heck of a team. You probably heard that a few times. So what do you
I'm
think,
obsessed.
Amanda? What do you think of that idea, though?
Oh my gosh, I would never, ever, ever leave a listing appointment with somebody saying that. Never.
So you're just gonna bring your sleeping bag and stay on their couch?
I would just not. Yeah, I mean, that is such a terrible note to leave on. Like, why would you walk out the door with them saying that? Like, okay, sure, think about it. Talk to you soon. Like, absolutely not. I would, depending on your personality type, try to, I don't know, maybe use a little bit of charm and just say, like, what did I, what was it that I didn't explain? Is there anything, or maybe not say it like that, but maybe
That same
what Pam said was awesome. How she's like, that means I didn't do my job. Like, that's just so 100% correct. Like, when you are on a listing appointment, you should be closing that listing appointment. And if you're not closing it there, you should be closing it that night or the following day. I would remember, they're nervous, they're scared. I would find a way to make them feel very, very comfortable and at ease with you. And if they say something like that, try to target what they need to think about, fix that, and get them to sign.
The other thing that you can do in that situation, Amanda, is listen. I understand. You have a lot to think about. It's a big question. I'd like to have you sign the listing now. Let's put it so I can get started first thing in the morning. If you sign the listing now and you decide at midnight you just can't do this and something has come up that's really freaked you out, then we'll tear it up. We won't do it, or we'll try to revisit what the problem is.
We have done that.
Let's-
Have them,
Yeah.
encourage them to sign the listing, and there's this big weight that comes off their shoulders. I've made a
Yeah.
commitment. And if they have to come back and take it back, that's fine. And you don't do anything untoward. You don't, put it in the MLS, you just put it in a folder and leave it on the desk. But there's sometimes that really does work with a very nervous, especially maybe an older person that they're finally going to go into a home or something like that. And or there's a big life change, any kind of big life change.
I can't. Yeah, I've done that with buyers. I can't believe I never thought to do it with a seller. I have written offers for buyers that have to think about it, and I've literally sent them the offer. Here's the offer. Here's what I think. Let me know what you think. And they've gone ahead and signed it.
Yeah, that's a big weight. Once a person pushes the pen and the other thing is, you may, if they really do need to think about it, you might be dealing with an irrational person, somebody you don't really want to have a listing with. Maybe they have an underlying
Right.
problem that you're geez, I don't want to be in bed with this person for the next 30 days and they're calling me every day complaining about everything. You know, if they're really unable to make a decision, it says something about how the process is going to go for
But
them.
there could also be something weird too, Jeff, where you think that this person is the decision maker when you're
Yeah.
making your listing presentation, and you come to find out the reason they're holding up is because they're not actually the decision maker.
Right.
They're the person with a life estate, or, you know, there's 5 people that need to sign this paper. There could be any number of things that are going on that weren't fleshed out you know, through the process of this interview, that, you know, when you get to that point with the signature, you can uncover that.
Well,
Okay,
when
let
you
me,
ask
let me,
When
let
you
me
ask the
interrupt.
question, why, that question will open up that, you know, the answers to that. Why won't you sign it? Why,
Yep.
what didn't I explain? Whatever. And then that opens the door to that possibility.
One thing that one thing that came up in the chat was the idea that sometimes what happens if the person's not in a hurry, that they're being in fact unreasonable and they're willing to wait and just put the house up there at a crazy price. What's the dangers to us as realtors there?
Time on the market is the biggest danger, but the main thing is if it's a good listing, you know, that we have a lot of things that are up on the lake and the things that they come on the market and they're too high. We know they're too high, you know, but you know, if you have the listing long enough and they have an understanding that they're going to consider a price adjustment when things get, you know, when they look at things more closely, if there's no activity, then you're in a place where you can take subsequent action. You know,
Okay.
you're in to take the next move. But so if it's a house is, you know, way overpriced and it's a dump to begin with, then why do it?
Yeah. Okay. And it's interesting because that gets back a little bit to what you were saying, Amanda, about you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, right?
Right.
Okay. What about when they want to try selling it for sale by owner? What if that, as you're kind of early on in the conversations with them, they're saying, well, you know, I know you can do this for X percent, or we're talking to a couple of realtors, but we may want to try this for sale by owner. Who'd like to start with that one? Amanda, you sound like you may have heard that before, or that your reaction.
No, I had a really tough year with FSBOs, and I again try to change my attitude to not like roll my eyes automatically when I hear that word, but I would obviously ask them what their reasoning for that is. I think that we're so quick to judge and think that the only reason people want to sell on their own is to save money, which is 99% of the time the reason, but sometimes they just want to try it on their own. They just think that they could do it. Maybe they sold a car on Craigslist once and it went really well. And I mean, but it kind of goes back to that first question. I say this to my buyers when they send me something that's for sale by owner. I've learned the hard way. I stay away from it. I just don't entertain it because typically those sellers are looking to save money and they just end up shooting themselves in the foot. So, you know, saying it nicely, I would just let them know that that's totally their decision if they decide to do that. But it really does come down to the emotional aspect of a transaction. You need someone who is not involved to facilitate every step of the transaction. Someone who, you know, is not buying the house and someone who's not selling the house. I would love to be that person. I have a ton of people I can connect you with. I'm going to market your home. You know, here's how I plan to market your home. And here's the commission rate. So when you really think about it, you know, you're using a professional to market your home and facilitate the entire transaction for this commission rate. What would you prefer, saving money or saving sanity? And they usually say they would, you know, prefer to save money. And then I close the door.
Another comment that
Over to Pam.
another comment that might be helpful is, does you as the FSBO, sir, ma'am, are you aware that the people that are looking at FSBOs are trying to save the same commission that you're trying to save? So that you're going to be talking to someone who wants to pay the price you're asking minus the commission. So that's going to be a conversation. Then the other part of that is going through the variety of services that you're going to provide including getting the home ready for showing, screening all the buyers, finding the financing, negotiating the contract, all these things, and go through each one of those steps. And are you prepared to do this job that I do? Are you prepared to do this job that I do? Are you prepared to do this job that I do? What happens when we have some series of problems about your home that you weren't aware of? And now we have to find people to fix them, or there's somebody we have to go to the town, or there's some other issues that have to be dealt with, which I deal with every day of the week, and you probably never have. So that, putting the series of problems that they may face, that you're there as a problem solver to deal with, and then ask, is it worth that few $1,000s that you're going to be saving?
And it's interesting, Pam, you make a good point, and Amanda hinted at this too, and I want to go over to Darlene as well. Amanda puts it in our comments. A lot of the people that are coming, I love what you said, Pam, about that they're going to be there. The folks looking at FSBOs are looking to save some money too. So that's going to cut into your savings, certainly. But then also the idea that any realtor that comes is going to be looking to get paid. That's 2.5%. That's close to half and maybe half of what you're hoping to save anyway. So now this pile of money that you envisioned is at least more than that. I think Amanda's dog just bit the mailman. Let's move over to, while she's calling 911, I just want to switch over to Darlene for a minute.
Are you safe?
But yeah, it comes back to, I guess in one of the other answers, we said, the general public really doesn't know every single thing that they need to do to sell a home, what professionals they may need. We bring a lot to the table, our connections and, just knowing all of that stuff that they don't know. And, you can explain to them, would you do heart surgery on your wife? You're not a professional. You might be a mechanic or you may be a nurse, but, leave it to the professionals. Mold, everything comes up. You don't have those professionals behind you and that experience. And they tend to sell for a lot less, like, everybody said. People who are looking at FSBOs are also trying to sell money. So are you really you're not gonna get the best. We have, connections with all of the real estate agents in the area. We know the area, the marketing, they just don't have access to that. And it's really cumbersome to try to schedule appointments. Are you going to be there to unlock it? Are you going to show it? Or, do you know the rules, with COVID and stuff now? There's so much that goes into it. I don't think people really understand everything that we do.
I think you're absolutely right. Jeff, you said something, as we're going to be wrapping this up pretty soon, just to respect time for the four of you have been wonderful. You said something early on, Jeff, that just absolutely, I wrote it down on the first page of my 3 pages of notes so far, 3.5. And that was, I don't remember which objection it was, but the misbelief or misunderstanding that all of this money is going to you, Jeff. You're taking this wheelbarrow of cash away when they're saving this money. The fact that, as you said with Darlene, all of the different things you do and the value. I think of Julia's marketing plan, for example, that Amanda brought up, but also the fact that Jeff, Ed mentioned this money gets spread around, and maybe it's the co-broke. So there's half of the savings, and Amanda, you said, well, there's the marketing and there's all these different facets. Jeff, how do you not get exasperated with this? How do you cut right to the quick?
I think that if you're dealing with a FSBO, Brian, and it's a really desirable thing, it's going to sell and you want to get in there.
Yeah.
I think a part of this, the presentation has to do with what everybody said, is that they don't understand the dimensions of the problem, so that they think that, well, I just get a contract. My attorney will do all the closing. That my attorney will take care of it. And I've had that half a dozen times, and I've sat down and said, listen, attorneys don't do that. Attorneys, they'll charge you an hourly rate for everything that they do. They don't have processors. They don't have people following up with inspections. They're not going to be able to take care of this for you. Do you know that if you don't provide a property condition disclosure for someone who's coming to your house, you'll be in violation of state law? Leave it right at that. Do you know that the state requires you to have, and they don't even know what a property condition disclosure is. Do you know that the risk that you associate with showing the property without proper COVID disclaimers, you are putting yourself in a position where you not only could be sick, you could be, you could have problems with other people. It's a major health issue right now. So saving a few dollars on your part and violating the law or running into the sickness or whatever, it's a time they will sell on their own. They will a certain amount of time.
Right.
And I will, if it seems like I'm really not getting there, I'm not, it's not going to happen, that they're really going to try this for a while.
Sure.
I will then say, listen, I will also work for you as a consultant. If you actually have a buyer who comes to you and says, I've got it, and here's my money, and I've done it, if you want me to help close this for you, I will work as a consultant on a flat fee basis as opposed to a commission basis.
And we
And
have
that-
done that.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it might be a couple, 3,000, whatever it might be, whatever you think the price range of the house is and what would be a reasonable cost. And you can justify that, but if you think your attorney's going to do this, they're going to be charging you X number of dollars per hour for however many hours they have, and they're not set up to do that. So they're going to spend a lot more time doing it. So I can work with you if you actually have a solid buyer. I will talk to them, I'll interview them, I'll go make sure that they are qualified, and we'll make sure they get the inspections done. You pay me a flat rate, and it's going to be a lot cheaper than if you tried to do it yourself or if you hired an attorney.
And we have turned them into excellent referral people.
Huh?
Yeah, that's true.
Referring, they will refer other people as buyers to us and other people as listings. So, if they're absolutely bound and determined to do it on their own, you can still make money.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you something. You folks, I mean, I could sit and listen to you. All four of you are just terrific. And it's just chemistry that has enabled us to, and the four of you have worked wonderfully together. Are there any parting thoughts, just as you continue to learn your way? Everyone continues to learn in this business. What do you think is I don't know, maybe if for agents out there, what's maybe one of the key things that they should bring to the table for a listing appointment, just as far as closing?
I could just say one word, Brian,
Yeah.
to be really, really a curious individual.
I love that. Okay.
Because the more curiosity that you have when you're interviewing buyers or sellers, the easier your job is going to be, because you don't have to come up with every answer. You just have to come up with the answers that they need.
Guys, that's brilliant.
If I have to cut out for a meeting, Brian, if I could also just say the one thing I would say for agents who are coming into the business and
Yes.
looking for ways to make money, don't forget that if you can sign up a buyer to an exclusive representation for a buyer's agency, it's like having a listing.
Yep.
And I find a lot of buyers don't understand that building value for an exclusive right to represent them is the same process as building confidence for a listing. You give them a list of all the stuff. If you do this, if you sign with me, I'll do all this stuff for you, and I'll take you across the bridge, and it'll be a great day. And it's the same as a listing. At some point in time, if you can find that person in the right place, if they're qualified, if they're good buyers, sign them up.
Awesome.
I want to go across that bridge with you, Jeff.
Yeah, right. There we go.
Darlene,
Right out
So
back of
free,
the-
babe.
final words, Darlene?
I just think you have to have confidence. You have to go in there with, some knowledge of the area, the home. You just have to go in there with confidence.
Excellent.
You're not
Fantastic.
gonna win all of them. So if you lose one, if you learn something from it, then, that's worth $1 million right there. Not to do that again.
Fantastic.
Kind of pick up your bags and, go to the next one and smile with more confidence, because now you know one more thing.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. Finally,
Great.
Amanda, you get the last words of the day.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, confidence, absolutely. I am all about you. Just make as many connections as you can and find something in common with every single person you meet, and they won't forget you.
Well, there's no way we're forgetting any of you. The four of you
I
were
agree, Amanda.
The four of you were terrific. We are all very grateful to you. And I hope everyone has learned things. I sure have. Have a great, great day.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Brian.
everybody.
Bye.